On to our next story. The continuing issue of the NFL protest continues to tick people off, makes folk mad, upset. But what's not happening, though, is them addressing the issue. Numerous players have been saying that they need to get back to the original issue. So the question I'm about to pose to my panel before I play this, question I'll pose to my panel: how do we retake the narrative? But before I do so, this is April Ryan yesterday at the White House getting into it with Sarah Huckabee Sanders on the very issue.
Many NFL players are very upset. Many people had different ideas and opinions on this, but when the president weighed in, the NFL said we're going to be united. There is an anticipation that it could grow even more so this weekend. What is the president anticipating? What should we expect him to say about this? It's now the NFL against the president.
I think the president's made very clear this shouldn't be about the NFL being against the president. This should be about our country coming together to support the flag, support the national anthem. There's nothing wrong with having pride in the United States. This president's been very clear on that, and he's certainly not going to back away from it.
Okay, so the NFL players, what we're hearing, it's not about not having pride. They're saying they're patriots. They love this country, but they're challenging the system, and they're looking at history like the challenge of the system when it came to women's rights issues as well as civil rights. What does the president say when you look at history and see how people love this country but wanted to challenge the system to make it better?
I think if we're going to look at history, we should look at the thousands of Americans who have given their life to protect that flag, to protect that anthem. We should be celebrating those people. I gave you a chance to answer. I'm going to finish your statement.
Now, what we didn't have there was the end of that particular comment when she said, look, this thing is black and white. People went, yeah, you're right, it is. Yeah. That wasn't what she was trying to say. That's exactly but the point. Twitter went crazy when they said, yeah, Sarah, you're right, it is black and white.
Mm-hmm. So you asked, how do we get back to this protest focusing on
the issue? The issue.
And I think that I am okay with issues being added onto this protest. What I would love to see moving forward
What do you mean added on? What do you mean?
I mean, in addition to police violence, that it expands to talking about, we talked about domestic violence. We talked about what does it mean to actually protest a flag as a patriot in this country and push back against systems. As April Ryan was talking about, people are pushing back against this system at large. So we're allowed to add to that list of systems. And what I would like to see the NFL players who are taking this knee to show up at things like the Black Women's March that's happening this weekend in D.C., to go to their local organizing.
Well, it's going to be a little hard for them to show up at the march this weekend when they're actually playing.
Well, that's on Saturday. Football happens on Sunday.
No,
yes?
no. What happens is teams actually fly on Friday to where they're going.
That's not my. It's not.
No, I'm just trying to tell you. No. I'm just trying to tell you. It's going to be a little hard for the players to show up when
resources would allow you to move about the country. But I also agree.
I will also. No, that's not how it happens.
Well, that too. But
I mean, you can show support online or video. I'm just saying.
I also think more players need to not be playing. I think that's what makes a meaningful boycott. It's for the boycott to not just be on viewers, but what does it mean for these players to be like, this NFL system is so oppressive, we're not allowed to protest, we're not allowed to access our First Amendment right. That will really start to hit in the pockets of the NFL.
Cleo.
So yeah, show up to the protest.
There's a theme, and I hope I make sense when I say this, there's a theme that I'm concerned about that we don't address enough in terms of black response to the blatantness of oppression. For example, it took Colin Kaepernick some time ago to be the only one to actually step up.
Well, no, that's just to the purpose of correction. He wasn't the only one. Eric Reed then joined him. You then had Brandon Marshall with the Denver Broncos. But you only had about 10 or 12 who did in the first year.
Right.
Go ahead. But it wasn't just Colin. Go ahead.
It wasn't just Colin ultimately, but wasn't he like the initial person?
He was the initial.
That's what I meant.
Gotcha.
He was the only for a little bit of time there.
Exactly. Thank you, because that's my point. I mean, and you're helping to make a point that I want to make in terms of the initial resistance to being resistors to white supremacy in these problems. And I think even the voting issue that's happening in Birmingham, and I think that's going to happen in Atlanta, and that happened during the last campaign that you just talked about.
Right.
There's some issues among black people around trauma and the disorientation of unresolved trauma that keeps us kind of immobilized on a national basis. Even when Obama ran for president, a lot of us didn't even vote for him, though we supported him philosophically until the Iowa move, when the white folks gave us permission to go and say we really want to support him. So the point I'm trying to make, that I hope they'll get lost, is that we at some point need to look at the impact of unresolved intergenerational trauma that immobilizes black people. Even in Ferguson, after the Michael Brown murder, they didn't jump up and change the civic system there. They didn't even, most of them didn't.
Well, same thing. Ferguson, 67% African American.
Right, and they had the power.
The next election, still only one African American was elected.
The point is that
the turnout did go up a little bit, but it wasn't dramatic.
It wasn't dramatic. My point is that the power sometimes is right in our hands. It's right there, and we actually can make a difference and turn everything around. But we're hesitant.
Before I go to Brandon, well, first of all, for while we're going to Brandon, I need you folks in the control room to pull up that memo again. And the reason I'm saying that, it's very interesting. I've been looking at all of these shows, and I've been looking at all these people talking, and they're like, oh, especially Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity and the rest of them. The players, they aren't saying why they're protesting, why aren't they talking. I mean, what happened last week, this was last week. Now, where I will agree with Derek Holley is that when it came to media, but that's really people like Fox, 10-page memo, 2,740 words, they completely ignored that. Where they detail, I'm talking about a very specific, not just we want a social activism month, but very clear details. When Dr. Harry Edwards was on the panel last week at CBC, he talked about the San Francisco 49ers after Colin Kaepernick kneeled, and then he said he was going to donate $1 million to various groups. Jed York, the owner of the San Francisco 49ers, said, I'm going to match that $1 million. And then the 49ers, as an organization, begin to do things, visiting police departments, talking about bridging communities, talking about training and those things. The 49ers put together an actual infrastructure and a plan that other teams could very well adopt. So when people act as if, this is why I think Jason Whitlock is an utter fool on this here. Because when you say, well, these players, they're just 23 and 24, they aren't trained in this stuff. This isn't their day job. It's not their day job. But let's not act like these players have not been very thoughtful about what they want to see done. They have been.
Yeah, and I heard a lot of people on both sides to say that, just play football. They shouldn't be doing this. And I disagree. I don't think that you are limited in your protest. I don't think you have to have like you said, it's your day job to do that. But to the question you asked the rest of the panel about what can be done, I guess, to actually see resolution to this issue. You talk about Reverend Jackson, one of my favorite human rights activists, will be Malcolm X. And he talks about the fact that, and I say this all the time, but you won't be surprised, that too often we get pulled into the trap of partisan politics. And give me a second, Roland, before you cut me off. He says, I think in his autobiography, he says that...
You haven't lied yet.
I know, okay. And that's what I'm saying, to this issue, you're talking about, whether it's black or white, there was a recent poll that said 61% of Americans, agree that you need to respect the flag and all that stuff. There's only 34% registered Republicans in this country. That means that this issue is beyond party. And one more thing, you just mentioned earlier that the issues... No. Oh, yeah, my God. But the narrative, again, you can act like it's not, and maybe I'm just, living in a bizarre world, but the narrative from some of us... Of course you are. You just mentioned earlier the primary. You mentioned, the issues that happened in the primary of Iowa, during the Democrat primary thing. I'm saying again that until... My biggest issue is that we too often put the Democrat Party agenda ahead of the black community's agenda.
Well, first of all, I don't know who's we.
Yeah.
I don't know who we. I don't know who we is.
Also,
wait, Amber. I need you to specify we.
You sometimes, not as much as others.
No, you lost your mind.
You sometimes.
No, you lost your mind. Here's why you lost your mind. What you don't like, Brandon, is you don't like accountability.
Not at all.
And
what do you mean?
You said not at all.
No, you're wrong. I'm saying you're wrong.
You said not at all.
Because you're wrong.
No, Brandon, here's the deal.
Not at all.
Brandon, here's the deal. What consistently happens on this show is that this is black. This is not black Democrat. It's not black Republican. This is accountability. Now, what pains you, and you can say all you want to, but you try to dance around it. What pains you is the accountability part. And what I need you to understand is we are going to hold folks accountable. When Democrats only spend less than 2% of resources on black consultants and black firms, they have gotten called out, will get called out. When black women, there's a 10% drop of black female support of the Democratic Party. They are getting called out. out when Melanie Campbell was on this show with Vanessa DeLuca of Essence Magazine discussing that. That's calling Democrats out.
It's not balanced.
But
It's not
Brandon,
balanced.
what you don't like is the heat. But
No, I don't like the bias. That's what I don't like.
Brandon, here's the deal.
We got black people fighting.
When you have the White House,
yes.
When you have the House, when you have the Senate, boo, you gonna get criticized.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.